now for many centuries. The old chill of the cold rain of so many January winters. Flowers with their small voices cry out this year, as they have cried out years and years before. The cold sky carves an isthmus of blue, a dashing white swath through the colors of the flag wrapped around the cold leaves of our evening. Music is where the heart is. Metaphors like scraps of food to be made into poems. Short poems, insignificant poems, instead of thrown away into the eternal garbage can of the leftover unconscious. I speak to women poets through the litanies of their nakedness, of their holy moaning through madrigals, of the grotto of their time to perfection. Yuppies on patrol like the Roman legions occupying Palestine, hard and moist and moaning during the time of Christ, and the metaphor roars like a lion. Bart writes a metaphor of the color red. A blue burst of the color of the quiet stare of sound, reverse of its color of red, as blue as the sharp eyes of its sound of the recognition, of its sharp thrust upon consciousness, of the blue of the real evening air, a real evening air, is the reverse of the sudden situation, of its destiny, of its final metaphor, as the color red. Balboa Variations, or Lawrence Ferlinghetti as a metaphor that I envy. Something about bugs eating little fishes on the forest soon to be gobbled up by the big silky sky main roar of proud forest lions. The rain-soaked day on terrible on 27th clothes our pools and people of darkness, of the worship of the arabesques of the strut of its language swinging through the trees. People are different. People are the same. The Esperanto of the psyche. I said that to a chick at a party one time. Laughter seized us and threw its spirit with us right across the room. Sonnet in the rain. Through the coldness of February, a blear drizzle of winter, knocking about soon to re-enter the vacuum of its final estuary, of the mortalness of the mortuary, of the paleness of its center. Gravitational as the orb of winter of the brownstone constabulary. Morbid contradictions that will flare in my strange uprising. Being in nothingness to care for a Hay Street dalliance, of compromising about myself and others. Well, sometimes, then in April, maybe another. Night particular. Last week the lights and nights seemed to descend to heaven. A pure softness of Havana and Ecuador, enchanted futile San Francisco. Isles and inlets so red I know not where, that have come from and praised other and outermost hemispheres and other heavens of other spheres of sparse rhyme. Yeah, rebels eat babies. Hanging old John Woodall, I told you there are 9 uses. I can talk to you like a semicolon. I can think of a phrase that has been forbidden to fly to the sun, but has to walk in the must be quiet or the must be clever in back of the UN. Talk to the poem in a dappy-dazzly Ivy League suit. It should. Throne of fire. I think sort of surfers on Friday nights, of images cracking on the jetties of rhyme, stoked out free verse with long lines a la Whitman and Olson that you can ride and ride as a lone surfer rides a 20-footer on an endless cloudy day of seeing into himself by candlelight between his legs on Saturday nights of summer. I read of Mickey Dora's death, like a night closing like Lasha, like Borscht, like an endless drunken gazaki of fire. A vodka, you fool, endless vodka. The blue calm void of the flip side into eternity and reality. My drunken comrades, Nikita. Thank you very much.
That brings us to Bill, then Dean, then Clyde, then Tom, then Dean, and Stephanie, then Mark.
And Alistair Crowley.
Alistair Crowley and the All Night Images.
Thought I'd get away from my usual gloom and read some spring poems, because I felt like spring all week. This one's Spring Bounces Softly. The sun spills its pitcher of warm milk and honey onto the cold and sluggish earth. A woman walks slowly down the sidewalk toward the cafe table where I sit, clenched in my frosty winter certainties. Breasts bounce softly under her tight cotton dress. The iron ring of my ascetic resolve holds fast. Breasts bounce closer. Iron ring weakens. And closer. Iron ring cracks. And closer. And closer. Soft breasts crush hard iron. And I am drenched in warm milk and honey. Let's see. 2 or 3 more.
I think Bluey would like it.
Split by the sword of love. My heart is split by the sword of love, and I don't know how to mend it. One half reaches up to the boundless heavens, like a sunflower to the sun. It circles around the haunted moon and reads its poetry in the stars, lit by celestial light. It casts its tendrils into the sky, not seen by ordinary sight. My heart is rent by the sword of love, and I don't know where to send it. The other half reaches down into the secret night that is visceral and viscid and sweaty. Its roots slide down into the primordial slime where frogs and fishes slither and slippery snakes entwine. My heart is split by the sword of love, and I don't know how to end it. Okay, one more. Spring poem. This is without my sorrow. I stretch out with my sorrow on the spring green fragrant grass beside the cherry tree, swaddled with blossoms, like a profession of arboreal love proffered to the sky. The dappled play of light and shade checkerboards me with cool and warm, and the soft, still air settles on my sorrow like a lover's silent kiss. A breeze stirs in the tops of the tall trees overhead, a tiny finger of that omnipotent wind that sails us into life and out. The breeze swirls around until it sees me with my sorrow lying beside the cherry tree. It launches a sudden gust like a bomb of love to blow away my sorrow. The gust explodes in the cherry blossoms, spraying petals like shrapnel everywhere. I am covered with petals, wounded by this bomb of love, but the sorrow that gripped me is no longer there.
Oh, mercy. Thank you. And now, Mr. Allen will come forward. Fifth. He wants to count down.
Got 2 poems for y'all tonight. First one's a pretty old one from 2008. This is called Footsteps. Laced up kicks, strapped on backpack, raised wooden staff with feathers. Their feet pound the pavement in packs, acting as one cohesive whole. The road belongs to them. 8,000 miles from coast to coast, state to state. The months have passed them by, moving on unseen wings. Rain, snow, and winter's violent twisting tempest hasn't kept them from moving their legs onward. At the foggy aisle of a lonesome ancient prison it began. At the massive ivory towers of a settler nation it ended. In the name they've walked, in the name of a vanishing race. They've walked for neighbors enslaved by chemical love affairs. They've walked for the planet gets warmer by the day as glaciers melt. They strove as humankind commits random acts of habitual murder with the most heinous reserved for sites held sacred by this land's red children. They strove against rulers' dark wishes, unspoken, transcribed desires, native rights willed out of existence. Footsteps were made against debilitating health, scorched black lungs, thick with tar, demons in the blood sugar. Footsteps were made against the poverty prison that is the reservation. This walk is vital to them. 30 years and before, the longest was the walk the First Nations took to save themselves and the earth before the end claimed both. Under one's feet is where the road begins, always. That first poem was called Footsteps, a poem written back in 2008 about the second longest walk, one that I almost went on. But my now former girlfriend at the time had talked me out of it because I had to stay obligated to going to college. Call that a missed opportunity to witness history in the making. And the last poem is new. I wrote this a week ago, just for tonight. This one is called Pine Ridge. Pine Ridge, 1 in 7 parceled lands. After Washington, D.C. took away the Black Hills, Oglala, Lakota were told that this was home. Pine Ridge, outdoor dance floor. Lakota moved with their ancestors' spirits in a circle, hoping the white eyes would disappear. Pine Ridge, site of slaughter. The white eyes hadn't disappeared. In fact, they rushed in, murderous intent. With rifles, they laid 300 low in Wounded Knee snow. Pine Ridge, stage for armed resistance. Aimed wanted puppet tribal corruption gone. For 71 days with shotguns, they'd shown the settler state that red men won't disappear. Pine Ridge, valley of despair. Once proud people now live in crumbling homes, impoverished, jobless, isolated, awash in beer, bought in white clay. Hope disappears. Pine Ridge, studying historical trauma, kept in mind for when native resistance to genocide reappears. The last poem was new. It was called Pine Ridge. For Richard Sanderell, birthday man tonight. Wish him a happy birthday, y'all.
Happy birthday.
I'm D. Allen, you're the crowd. Thanks for listening. Good night.
Those were the addressing the flag and nothing else. All right. Keep that in mind as we have our lovely theme that is ever ongoing. Yeah, that's you. Clyde Always, ladies and gentlemen. Give him a round of applause for coming out here bravely.
Hey, everybody.
Full-heartedly passed bravely.
You know what I mean? My name's Clyde Always. I'm not the greatest poet that ever lived, but I am a completely self-obsessed egomaniac. Therefore, I'm well on my way. I'm going to try and stick with the theme of age and politics, if that's the theme. So I'll start with my my latest and greatest political poem. It's called Old Bluey in Big Red, and it goes like this. Now, some may say that two's too few, but me, it's all I need. So one is red, and one is blue, and two's enough indeed. Old Bluey is my tender love, and comfort never hurts. But Big Red is the warmest of my stinking flannel shirts. That's that. So this one goes with a theme of age. I'm not sure if anybody here was alive during the Great Depression, but I hope they were. It's called Mutts. It's by me, yours truly, Clyde Always. It goes like this. Floating Spalding knuckleballs for my pup to fetch, with a big league straight leg wind up. Papa gave me a shiner today. Long come another dog, an old and mangy mongrel, lame as President Roosevelt. He wanna play too. Mama's drunk at home, but this old boy don't know to look out for my crazy kick step. Teacher whooped me good. Shoo, I say, go on back up. Deaf old dog don't move. Another ketchup sandwich for supper tonight. Oh, I curse and swear and swing my fists, yet still he hugs my trouser cuffs and wags a flailing tail. Thanks, everybody. So then I guess I'm going to end it with they. And it goes like this. Oh, it's them are the ones that are keeping us numb, and it's them that's can black out the day. And it's them who have got us right under their thumb, and the name that I'll call them is they. From the time we can talk, they have sought to control every thought that we have in our brains, and they made us submit to a cloth on a pole, and thus tightened our shackles and chains. And they graded our papers with bloody red ink, and they beat us and mocked us and spat. They regarded most highly the ones not to think, and the thoughtful as lowly the rat. And they printed some money and gave it some worth, and they made it the ultimate prize, until all of the folks that are left on the earth had the currency signs in their eyes. And they tarnished the world with invisible lines, and they quibbled and shouted and fought. And they loaded their rifles and laid out the mines, and they shed down the blood all for naught. And they muddied and mucked up the heavens above, and they drilled into Hades below. And they clubbed up the seal, and they shot down the dove, and they dammed all the rivers that flow. And they jaded our minds with their gimmicks and gags. They bedazzled the ceiling and floor. All the bills and the boards and containers and bags they emblazoned with logos galore. And they put up their puppets and had a debate. They divided the masses in two. And they bellowed a fire so founded in hate how the sparks of democracy flew. And our brothers they led into deserts afar, and they tricked them to murder and maim. And a crescent so fertile lit like a cigar, and be sure it's the oil's to blame. And the children they starved and they strangled for greed, and the country and cities alike are the ones they imprison and beat up and bleed with their heads on display on a spike. And they made us a number, they made us a thing, and they made us to carry a card. So that year after year, in the dawn of the spring, they ensure we're at work in the yard. And our mothers and sisters they treated as swine, and the natives they stomped to the dirt. And they auctioned off humans so whipped to the spine, and they never cared who they might hurt. But it's us, are the ones, with the numbers so vast. Look, it's us that can settle the debt. And it's us that can make they a thing of the past, but we haven't done anything yet. Thanks, everybody. Tune in this Friday at Kevin International for another episode of the Clyde Always Show. Good night.
Clyde Always. He's always Clyde. Thank you. Paul Holberg.
Oh my.
Then me, then Stephanie, then Martin, then Richard, then Karen, then Ben. Eli Whitney, Tom Jones.
Hello, I am Tom Holmgren, and I'm glad to be here, and thank you
For your exploration.
You got that down, huh?
Well, we tried.
A man woke up one morning and wrote 1,000 words. His editor said, "Now that's worth a picture." You never lose a friend. Not really. They have rubbed off on you. Love is messy. Like rolling in mud like a pig. We if a horse could talk. A horse rider said, "Oh, whoa, is me." The horse said, "Oh, come on, buddy. Get off my back and give me a kiss." If I am short with you, it is not to be impolite. I want you to remember, like, all we said was, "It's nice to be here," before we left.
Thank you, Tom Holmberg. This brings us to me.
Don't say that yet. I'm not ready. I always say I'm ready, but I'm never ready. So, just about a year ago, Mr. Don Brennan passed away. And I saw this posted on Facebook. It's a poem that he wrote, so I thought I would read this, and then a couple of mine. So it goes, it's called Compassion. To you, I speak, to all who have followed the sun-throated wren perched upon a backyard wire, balanced as a sequined acrobat about to spin into air, to migrate, to dance so high on swift wings as to seem invisible, calling out your name for the last time as a faint disturbance in the coldest part of the sky, to become before you can answer inaudible, finally invisible, for you who have exchanged compassion for rude interruptions, disruptions of time by the cries of telephones, by intrusions of vapid conversations into your butterfly paths, looping like fear, like envy, ornamenting your despair. For you who are infinite, enclosed now in finitude, for whom the infinite has been lost in your dramatic cycle of suffering, to you who have lost your compassion, I offer my own. And this has to do with the flag over there, directly and indirectly. Children's eyes. You have seen them. A beautiful child's eyes, as hers were, both dark and wide, limpid, wondrous, happy. Having seen only the grace of the greenery all about her, this was her world. The emerald lights of the towering canopy, the rich, variable forms teeming in the soil, the ever-buzzing air, rustling undergrowth, the great rains and dreamy mists. Her life was simple. Her people knew nothing of what modern humankind had become. So, the first time she saw logging machines, white men, their hard boots, gloves, and cigarettes, it became the last time she saw anything. Now, I can't imagine what she suffered at their rough hands, or how forgiving death must be, or how God allows even such a tiny horror. Maybe she was dead before they burned her into charcoal. Maybe she was dead before they tied her up. Maybe she did not survive the rapes. Maybe we don't know the worst of what happened. And maybe we don't want to. She was of the Awa, one of Amazonia's protected tribes. They are infinitesimal in terms of this world's billions. They have so little and don't even know it. Yet greed, knowing no bounds, found a way to murder this young girl whose innocence had protected her all her life until the last possible moment.
That's from a true story.
The facts shall not protect the guilty. And so this is in honor of my, in honor of my wife. A stroll about our neighborhood, the sidewalk lightly shaded, a sprinkling of dusky rain, the air moving fresh, where I pass a dark silken scarf strewn gracefully along. I went on slowly, but there came perfume. For a moment, I thought of the scarf and looked back, but it was downwind. Another waft, this one warm, musky, followed by still another, floral, sweet, not perfume, but something else. I looked to the near garden, flowerless, to the trees all barren of branch, into the wind, blown down the way and quickening, and then to the sky, occluded with misshapen clouds, all heavily dark. I wondered for a moment, stood, nostrils flared to draw in rich air deeply, then exhaling. I thought of you, and was so very glad then, so very thankful just thinking of you. Thank you.
Stephanie, then Mars, and then our feature. So give Stephanie a nice round of applause.
Nice to see everybody here. Happy birthday, Richard.
Yes, happy birthday.
So, weekend is going to be a peace walk led by Jun-san, who's a Buddhist Nippon son, Myohoji Buddhist from New York. Well, she's from Japan, but she's coming out from her peace pagoda in New York and going to go around the whole Bay Area. Saturday we'll be in San Francisco, and there's a big anti-war demonstration in San Francisco. But anyway, in light of all this, there's a poem. Town awakened by bombs, suddenly dropping, hitting hospitals, schools, killing grandfathers, children with no soldiers in sight. They fly in and take over by virtue of death. Death of townsfolk and animals, by the death of farmlands and marketplaces, by the destruction of ancient churches and mosques, centuries old, with high-flying buttresses, easily destroyed by the heavy bombs as they drop. It all began with an anonymous humming in the pre-dawn sky, while people slept and dreamed of humming, getting closer and closer. But no, it was not dreaming. The humming grows until it rattles the ears, and the explosions begin, and people die, and mothers scream, and heads roll, and people die, while the rest of the world sleeps. And the politicians who caused this lie well insulated on cotton sheets deep in cozy denial, distanced from the actual expenditure of taxpayer money and the blood, out there among the explosions and the body parts. And politician rests easy behind a firewall of largesse, well protected by layers of procedures, big money, and many, many workers paid to protect him. Yes, sir. No, sir. Whatever you say, sir. Right away, sir. Paid to put their principles out of sight, locked away from paid functions and dressed uniformly. Very few heroes or heroines with jobs hard to come by. He commands, he eats, he sleeps, he punishes, removes, and replaces. Blood continues to spill. 4 million children left orphaned or displaced. No regular life when the humming starts. The cause unknowable. Some dispute from centuries past, carried over from generation to generation. Babies know nothing. They cry as their fathers stumble in the street and hope is lost. All that's left to do is weep, write poems, and war against the system. An old woman of 64, wrinkled, hair graying, loves a handsome man 12 years younger. Pining fills her brain as he ignores her. It ebbs and flows like a great ocean, sometimes stormy, some days calm. How long will she wait for him? The man loves a beautiful woman who ignores him. Pining fills his brain like a great ocean, ebbing and flowing. How long will he wait for her? If the old woman got one look at the beautiful woman, her mind would clear. But the young man keeps the old woman's mind in a constant state of fixation by obfuscation and suggestiveness. Each of the three has too much power and too much helplessness. Eventually it will be decided. Eventually it will be decided. Lie, demons, grant us freedom. Thank you.
All right. Art and Joseph, before our feature of the evening, will kindly step forward. Give him a warm round to bring him up here. Mr. Art and Joseph. Not of the Philadelphia Joseph, however, as I understand it.
Not even remotely.
Okay, just be sure. Philadelphia Joseph's, well, yeah. Just
Philadelphia Justice. Okay.
Good.
Hello.
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 There you go.
much better.
Good evening, Sacred Grounds.
Good evening. Good morning.
As Beachhead so aptly put it, yesterday was St. Patty's Day. And I brought for that a poem called The Queen is Wearing Green. I wrote this a couple of years ago when we had a different pope, so when we get to that part, you'll know which one I'm referring to. The Queen is wearing green as she visits Ireland. It is a symbolic statement. She told the Irish people that perhaps we have not treated the Irish as well as we should have. It is possible that mistakes were made. Perhaps it would have been better had we not done some of the things that we did. It is a lovely light green spring dress, a nice gesture, given 4 centuries of slavery, death, domination, and privation. I think that perhaps a nicer symbolic gesture would be to give us back the rest of our Emerald Isle. The Pope is wearing a robe as he stands out on the balcony. It is made of fine white silk thread and does not at all look like the one that Jesus would have worn. Perhaps we have not treated the Jews as well as we should have, he said. It is possible that mistakes were made and that over time it would have been better had we not done some of the things that we did. It is a nice gesture from a man in white. Not quite enough, though, to make us forget about his days in the Hitler Youth. Nor is it nearly enough to wash off the dried blood on the steps of the Vatican and the rivers of souls lost throughout Europe and the rest of the world over the many centuries. It is not really a full apology, but it is nice to hear something after all this time. The president is wearing a pheasant. Or at least it seems so on Fox News. He draws himself up to his full height at the podium and intones, "Perhaps we have not treated the Native American peoples as well as we should have. It is possible that mistakes were made along the way, and that perhaps it would have been better had we not done some of the things that we did." He sounds sincere, and it is a nice thing to hear. my line of Native American fathers would have agreed, even though they, as increasingly white men over the generations, did not personally experience the trail of tears, the smallpox blankets, and the outright massacres that befell their full-blooded brothers and sisters over the past 3 centuries. At this rate, that's okay. It'll be done by the time you get back. I stuck. Can you guys hear?
You should have stopped.
Yeah, you shouldn't have stopped.
We were zeroed in on that.
Okay.
Yo, keep going.
Alrighty then. Where were we? Ah, yes. One more. At this rate, in 200 or 300 years, we may even hear the Israeli Prime Minister stand before the cameras and say, perhaps the state of Israel has not treated the Palestinians as well as we might have. Perhaps mistakes have been made and that perhaps things were done that should not have been done. Even that would be a small green step in the right direction. I just hope that there will still be some green left somewhere that can be used to celebrate it.
Not this election.
All right. I didn't want to see many features.
Many features just Morgan. Thank you very much. I think we look forward to that.
Garrett Murphy, ladies and gentlemen.
Garrett Murphy.
It says,
Hallelujah. All right. So, the feature, I didn't prepare anything, but then I didn't have to, because this guy, he showed up here a few weeks back, and he got up here and he read a poem, and I thought, how come I haven't heard this guy before? That was the first time I was here, and I thought, well, I'll just, see if he can fit me into his busy schedule. And he doesn't apparently have a busy schedule. So it's really great. I mean, he's been up here a number of times since then, and just really giving the universe a tongue lashing. Would you say that somewhat accurate? Okay. So he's a very powerful speaker, and I enjoy his poetry very much. Give a round of applause for Richard Sanderell.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Dan, for those kind words, and for the kindness a lot of people have shown me here. I have written some new stuff and interspersed. This is one called No Time. I have no time for the right, the left, the center, the pacifist, or the religious. I have no time for the right and the left because all they want to do is proselytize. I have no time for the religious for the same reason. I have no time for the pacifists because all they want to do is yell peace, 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 but don't seem to be able to do the hard work to bring about peace. The step which is left out in the hardest is reconciliation. I have no time for the center because they think everything's all right. In the end, the only thing I can believe is in me. Good. I think I'll save that. Well, I've read Crying When here before, so for those who haven't, it's new to them. Crying When. After traveling underground, I arise into the light. I hear the chaos of our lives, but underneath the sound of the drum, the heartbeat of pain, passion, racing. Escalator pushes me off. I turn and see the drummer. Aged by the street, the sad-eyed ditty with the blues, chants and drums that drives the dancer. This Aboriginal dancer dances from past memory, drowned in alcohol, fueled by fury. This dance is his protection. He bobs, weaves, hands pump, pumps, jabs, eyes blacker than deepest caves. Long, dull black hair blows into his face, sticking to his skin. Divorced from himself as well as his people, he dances among the Americans with their manifest destiny eyes, who only see just another couple of drunken Indians. I know this dancer. He would pick a fight so he could feel something, anything, even if it was filled with hurt. His name was Crying Wind, and this is how he lived. I will truly never know all the things that drove me to this, but I do know this man was robbed. There is a story where one character complains about all the drunk Indians. The other answers, maybe you ought to be glad that they're all drunk. Imagine what would happen if they all got sober. And I still long for that day. Elders to ancestors. As everybody knows, death is around us all the time. And recently a friend of mine passed. And I had said something, and people were quite moved by it. And I realized that, this happens all the time. And though I'm probably a godless man, I don't believe in religion or a lot of that. And there's certain images that I do like. So this is why I wrote this. Elders to ancestors. As we age, some become elders, and others just get old. Not all get to be elders, but they may have wisdom but they may have more wisdom than any of those who have longevity. When elders pass, they become our ancestors. As sometimes is, some knew it was coming, and some were stunned. Some have support and some do not. But in the end, we all must pass alone. And how we do that may be as important as how we live. There are elders who lead from the front, while others eschew that role, believing that leading from behind is a better course. Both are needed. They will be missed. When in a quiet place or out in the wild, where all you hear are the creatures and the wind, you might hear the ancestors whispering in your ears. And if you're really, really quiet and fortunate and still enough, you might hear the whispers of the ancestor that's passed. Veterans Day. My brother over here suggested once I write something about Veterans Day after an article about the Concert of Valor. I don't know if anybody. Hope everybody missed it. So, but anyway,
I never even heard of it.
Good. So I'm glad it was totally missed. That was successful. All right. Well, anyway, so I wrote this Veterans Day. Veterans Day and another 22 dead veterans by their own hands as the wars continue. And a good day to change the history of these wars. Veterans Day, another day the VA is unable to heal the soul wounds they helped inflict through the Department of War. And what did you do during the war, Daddy, Mommy? Veterans Day, when we learn some politicians don't go to war because they have better things to do. Veterans Day and another day a vet clears the enemy from the neighborhood, and another vet becomes part of the United States security team. Veterans Day to remember Buffy St. Marie, who was blacklisted, and her song Universal Soldier gave us a plan to end these wars. But as always, no one listened. Veterans Day, and they thank me they thank me for fighting for our rights. But I must tell them that I didn't fight for their rights or my rights. But I did get to fight for the lying politicians, bankers in the military-industrial complex Eisenhower warned us about. You remember Eisenhower and all those white picket fences? Veterans Day, a day people thank me for my service, and I asked them if they know what they're thanking me for. Veterans Day, another day of not seeing the dead come home in flag-draped coffins, or those killed in the Empire's name.
Veterans Day, a good day to go shopping.
Veterans Day, where tears may flow or not, depending on your view of these wars. Veterans Day, where corporations buy a concert of valor and call us heroes to shut our mouths. Valor? Really? More like trying to survive. Veterans Day and another parade, and another day to bash Jane Fonda, the enemy of democracy and freedom. However, they never mentioned she did more for veterans privately than most of those who criticized her ever did publicly. Veterans Day, a good day to howl, as in Allen Ginsberg's poem, where he saw the best minds of his generations destroyed, as generations that followed understood. Veterans Day, a day to remember Wounded Knee in 1890, where unarmed Indian men, women, and children were murdered by soldiers who received Congressional Medals of Honor for doing so. Where is the honor in this? Should these medals be rescinded? Occupiers? Anyone? Veterans Day, the day that always feels like Memorial Day. It's a new one. It's called Beauty. Beauty. There is a Vietnamese woman of great beauty, aged by life and war. Her beauty is of soul, heart, and intelligence. Her physical beauty may have been diminished by war and trauma she suffered by the hands of the South Vietnamese government, who only viewed her as an enemy rather than their mother, sister, cousin. This corrupted South Vietnamese government, who viewed her as being on the wrong side, put her into a tiger cage, suspended in air. She was kept there for a year. She was never left out, never able to shower, no place to relieve herself, or to clean herself during her menstruation. To clean her, they opened up the fire hose full force. All this was done, of course, with the approval of the Usan Empire. After the war, she opened up a humanitarian sanctuary where victims of Agent Orange could live and survive as best they can. These victims, mostly children, may have no bones, their legs, or deformed in their legs, or deformed faces, spines, limbs, or cancers of various types. She taught them how to make orange beaded ribbons that represent Agent Orange, which they sell to help support the refuge. In other words, they are in constant financial trouble. But she is undaunted by all this and keeps the struggle alive for her countrymen. She was part of the last delegation from Vietnam who came here to find that the Usan Empire and its courts denied them justice for the chemical warfare the Empire unleashed on the Vietnamese, as well as the Usan fighting force. The delegation came when the native people were out at Alcatraz commemorating Indigenous Peoples Day. We invited them to join the celebration with native people and those who support the native struggle, which is the same struggle the Vietnamese face. They were interviewed on the radio, expressing how happy they were to be among the people. And the people expressed how happy they were that the Vietnamese came to celebrate with them. I will always remember her beautiful smile, the warmth that invited you into her spirit and soul. There seemed to be no bitterness in her, though I don't think I could be so forgiving. She was not giving in if she was not going to let her horrific traumas kill her or stop her from what she has to do. I believe she found peace in her work, the work that she does, and to do that, she can only do that through love of the people. Not to be trite, but I do hope she lives long and prospers. and that she is surrounded by the love she gives. This piece is dedicated to Madame Newt, a woman of light. I don't know if you can see it, but this is the ribbon he's going to make.
Oh, okay.
And if anybody's interested, I know poets are pretty poor, but maybe spread the word. There's going to be a delegation going April 6th, and I have a name of a contact person. If you want to write a check to her, what I'm going to do is give you her phone number, and she can direct you how to get the money to them. So if anybody's interested, or spread the word, I can give you the phone number later. Well, let me say this. Installation. There is an installation of truth that may set you, that may not set you free. Half-truths and lies are easier. This installation speaks of war, a battlefield cross, inverted rifle with bayonet stabbing the earth, topped by helmet and goggles. This symbol identifies where a dead soldier lay, sacrificed in combat for the Empire. A name tag with the text of mother's love and grief for the dead child hangs from this disfigured cross, or crucifix. Both showing sweat where sit in front. The installer later swapped the boots for sneakers, representing the fact that this was someone's child. This piece has two added features laying at the foot of this deformed cross. The Constitution that contains the Bill of Rights, a treaty broken like all treaties made with the Empire, and the other, the Oath of Enlistment, written in red crayon by a child, representing the age of the most enlistees. Red, the color of blood. One can look at this piece as representing only one family. In reality, it is much more. Art will have a layer seen and unseen, as it is in life. One can imagine looking through the goggles of what this soldier might have seen as he pointed his rifle at what the Empire deemed to be the enemy, or in some cases who it was the soldier judged to be a threat. That threat, however, would not exist if they weren't sent by their double-dealing politicians and their associates into the harm's way for greed and empire. What then are the stories of dead families created by this one soldier, as the family depicted before me? Will they have an installation, a memorial, a place of remembrance? Yes. It will be a living memorial, the memorial and remembrance of the wounded and devastated heart. Dedicated to Liam Curry, a man of soul and heart. American Killer, same as the old killer. American Killer comes into where I work, and yes, he does look like he woke before dawn. He has a military walk with his own style of swagger, someone arrogant enough to think that he is the cosmos gift to humanity, the savior incarnate. For me, he looks ill with a tinge of gray in his white skin. He approaches me. He thinks he's found a friend, but I'm skeptical. Do you want to see a picture, he asked with glee and a crooked smile. I'm not sure what to expect, but I'm sure it'll be with regret. Reaching into his back pocket, he whips around his wallet with the picture holder and flips open right to the picture. What I see creates such revulsion in me. There is no tree high enough to climb or a deep cave to hide only this picture staring at me. There are explosions going off all over my body. Anger rises as a roller coaster reaches its peak before crashing down with speed and force. Indignation beyond my control. What is shown to me is this American killer standing with helmet tilted, gun across his right shoulder, left foot on the back side of a dead Vietnamese man, and the left hand going through the back of the skull with the fingers coming out of the eye sockets, or the eye sockets where the eyes had once been. All hail to the Savior. All hail to the American killer. All hail the defender of the empire and all that he does. I am maddened. I am at the edge of throwing lightning bolts. I want to believe I can breathe fire so he and this ugly image becomes toast to ashes. But I cannot breathe fire or throw lightning bolts. This is the face of those soldiers killing unarmed men, women, and children that wounded me. This is the face of soldiers that we lie. I look in the mirror and you may see that same face. It's the face that didn't question, that brought what stands before me, and of those of the future. And there will be faces in the future as surely as I write these words. The empire will have more ugly pictures of American killers that are the same as the old killers. Occasionally when I go by down by the Vets building, City Hall, it's all gilded and gold. And tourists are always taking pictures there. So I always turn to them and I say this: all empires are gilded in gold before the fall. Well, anyway.
Well said.
That's true. Well, now I have to edit here. Let me do this one, and then the short one is the one that started me in the way I'm writing. It's called Waiting. I'll tell you ahead of time the sacred hoop for some Indian people: the circle, 4 directions, 4 colors of humanity, Father Sky, Mother Earth, meaning male, female. If I say Aboriginal from Turtle Island, Aboriginal means original, means the native people. Turtle Island is what some people call this North America. It's called Waiting. It was the African who turned me on. It was the Aboriginal from Turtle Island that gave me my heart. It was the European that gave me my sorrow. It was the American who sent me to war and tried to keep me ugly. It was the Vietnamese that gave me forgiveness. May I forgive myself. Come back to the Lupa. The elders have been waiting. Okay. And I'll just finish with forked tongues spoken in broken English. Speak with forked tongues and in broken English, language of the empire. Viral, bacterial, a language of hope that gives none, where audacity stands, frozen and frightened. Speak to us with forked tongues and in broken English so everyone understands with whom they are speaking. The empire is where leaders lead, but the people find themselves leaderless and confused by their broken language. In our empire, all the presidents' names are George. Remember to speak to us with forked tongue and in broken English so truths can remain hidden, and we fight and argue from viewpoints that are viewless and pointless. Speak to us with forked tongues and in broken English so what was done to the Aboriginal people will continue to be done to us, the children of empire. Speak to us with your forked tongues and in broken English so Orwell's doublespeak reigns and shines. Speak to us straight, and we'll just assume you're lying.
Sangerville.
Happy birthday, Richard.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Richard. Happy birthday to you.
We're going to take a short break, 10 minutes-ish, and then we have several poets coming up. Karen, Ben, Mark, Alex, are you going to be doing something for us, Mark? Do something?
Yes, thank you.
Yes?
Yes, thank you.
No. Yes, and then Karen Murphy will knock us out of the park.
Starting this week.
When you can't still hunt, yeah. They had those beautiful blind chickens. He did that last Christmas Eve, but he didn't get them today. Yeah, tonight, yeah. Now, how many?
You gonna read it?
Oh.
I was just gonna ask.
Oh, yeah. I've got one, but it is really sad. I'm so happy to see you. You look wonderful.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So maybe